She hadn't planned on running into him tonight. Her ex, the man who broke her heart and made her question her worth, was striding through the glittering hotel lobby like he owned it. He was as arrogant as ever, and the moment her eyes caught his, she felt that old familiar panic rise up in her chest. She couldn't let him see her weak, couldn't let him circle her like a vulture again. So she did the unthinkable. She turned to the stranger standing beside her, a tall, devastatingly handsome man in an immaculate suit, and whispered desperately, "Please, just hold my hands. Pretend you're with me." He didn't hesitate. His warm, steady fingers wrapped around hers, grounding her trembling heart. To the rest of the world, it looked like she belonged to him, and for the first time in years, she felt safe. What she didn't know was that the man she begged for help wasn't just anyone. He was a self-made millionaire, a man who built an empire out of nothing, and in that moment, looking into her wide, pleading eyes, he felt something he never believed in: love at first sight. That single touch set everything in motion. A desperate plea for protection would become the beginning of a whirlwind romance neither of them expected, but both of them needed. But that was just the start, and you would never believe what happened next.
The lobby gleamed like a calm ocean set in marble, gold pendant lights swaying, a pianist threading silk through the air. She hadn't planned on seeing him tonight. Ava Reyes felt the chill first, that old crawling cold her ex left behind. Nolan Pierce, immaculate and predatory, cut across the lobby with the certainty of a storm that knows exactly where it's going to break. Panic nipped at her heels. She could already feel his voice sliding into her head the way it always had. "You need me. You're nothing without me." Smile. She'd vowed he would never see her flinch again, and yet her fingers trembled around the strap of her clutch. Then she noticed him. The stranger stood just within the halo of a chandelier, tailored midnight suit, shoulders that knew how to carry weight, eyes like a secret kept carefully. Roman called her, though she didn't know the name yet. There was space beside him, a steady gravity. Ava stepped into it like a ledge. "Please, just hold my hands, pretend you're with me," she whispered, breath barely a thread. He didn't ask why. He laced their fingers together, warm, sure, and just like that, the world steadied. He turned his body, shielding her from Nolan's line of sight with a casual, practiced grace. To everyone else, they looked like they belonged. To Ava, it felt like oxygen returning to a room she hadn't realized was starved. Roman felt it hit, like a door opening into light he'd forgotten existed. He didn't believe in lightning, in myth, in the kind of instant that redrew maps. He believed in effort and hours and 1,000 tiny decisions. But the second her fingers threaded with his, something wordless set its anchor. Nolan slowed, recalculated, and kept moving with a brittle smile, his eyes promising a later ambush. "Thank you," Ava managed, cheeks flushed, pulse skittering. "Any time," Roman said, the word sounding larger than the moment. "I'm Roman." "Ava." She tried to tug her hand back. He didn't hold on, but he didn't step away either. The pianist slid into a new melody. Somewhere, a camera clicked. Tonight had shifted, neither of them could unknow it. If you were Ava, would you grab a stranger's hand? Or face the ex alone? Tell me in the comments which choice you'd make and why.
Ava Reyes had built her life in inches, not miles. Mornings before sunrise at her little bakery, Lark Laurel dusting the city awake with sugar. She liked quiet, the small clink of cooling racks, the rhythm of flour on wood. She liked the way strangers became regulars, became names, became the story of a place. She had worked too hard to let Nolan shrink her world until it fit in his pocket. He had once been charm wrapped around attention, the first man to call her brilliant and mean it. Then the compliments calcified into criticism. A suggestion became a rule, became you're imagining things. When she finally left, she'd left with a suitcase, a lease hanging by a thread, and a list of debts she hadn't known were in her name. Her best friend Zara called Nolan a narcissist with the clinical precision of someone who'd Googled late at night. Ava called him a lesson she would not repeat. Roman Calder had never planned to be the man in the lobby people noticed. Raised in the foster churn, he'd become fluent in quiet exits and not needing anyone. He built Calder Collective with a stubbornness that bordered on religion, hotels that respected neighborhoods, restaurants that hired locally, rooftop gardens that gave back. He was good at synthesizing systems and reading rooms. Feelings were trickier. He had a scar's approach to tenderness, deep, private, healed over. His sister Sophie kept a small lemon tree on her balcony that he watered whenever she forgot. He called it balance. She called it avoidance. Roman did not like to be surprised. Ava was an astonishment. "Is he gone?" she asked, eyes flicking toward the bar where Nolan was pretending not to watch. "For now," Roman said, following her gaze, "but he'll circle." "You sound sure?" "I've been in too many rooms like this." He nodded toward the ballroom doors upstairs, where a charity gala gathered steam. A glance becomes a power play before dessert. A half laugh escaped Ava, shaky and grateful. "Do you always come with metaphors and rescue missions?" "Only when asked." He gestured toward the elevators. "Come upstairs. Safer crowd. More cameras." "I'm not looking for anything." Ava wanted to be precise. She could already hear Nolan's voice twisting it. "See? Thirsty? Desperate. I just needed a minute." What you needed was respect. Roman's tone surprised them both. He cleared his throat. "You can stand with me until you don't want to. No questions." Ava should have said no. Instead, she found herself walking toward the elevator, hand still warm from his. The gala was a garden of shining people and whispered deals. Strings hummed overhead. Roman moved through it like a fluent speaker, his presence quiet but undeniable, every staff member greeting him by name. He wasn't just a guest. He belonged to the bones of the place. "Friends," he lied smoothly when anyone asked who Ava was. "We met downstairs." He never made her perform. He introduced her to Sophie, whose smile had the warmth of a porch light. "Anyone who makes Rom stop working for 5 minutes is a national treasure," Sophie said, conspiratorial. "Tell me everything." Ava laughed, a real one this time, and for a little while the noise of Nolan receded. She learned Roman liked his coffee too strong, that he used to bus tables to save for night classes, that he listened more than he spoke. She learned the way his attention felt, steady, like a tide that didn't waver with the moon. Then the flash, a photographer catching them at the balcony, their heads bent close. The shot would look like intimacy because it was, even if it had no name yet. Ava's phone vibrated. Unknown number. "You think he'll save you?" "Cute. Tell him how much you owe. Tell him what I could do to your lease." Nolan, always finding a seam. Roman watched the color drain from her face. "He texted?" "He's persistent." She inhaled, braced. "He still has access to things he shouldn't. The bakery, my lease, he made friends with my landlord. A lot of my equipment is technically rented. If I step wrong, I could lose everything." "What's his currency?" Roman asked. "Control and attention." Ava looked up. "He'll burn it all down if it means I look at him while it happens." "Then let's change the narrative he thinks he owns," Roman said, something resolute settling in his voice. "If you're comfortable, we can make it clear you're not alone anymore. Not a lie," he added, hearing how it sounded. "Just protection, publicly." He did not say fake dating. He said, "I can block the wind." Ava stared at their reflection in the window. Two people who had met an hour ago, pretending to be a story that felt like tomorrow already. "Okay," she heard herself say. "For a week, just so he backs off." Roman nodded, not quite smiling. He lifted her hand again, aware of the cameras, aware of Nolan somewhere watching, and made a small promise he hadn't intended to make until life asked him for it, I'll stand between you and whatever comes. By morning, the photo would be everywhere. So would Nolan's rage.
They choreographed a very public week. Coffee runs with paparazzi accidentally present. A boardwalk stroll where Roman let his hand rest at the small of Ava's back, like it belonged there. A donor dinner where Ava wore a simple black dress, and the room took notice the way rooms do when authenticity walks in by mistake. "Do you ever get tired of being looked at?" Ava murmured, smile steady as another flash went off. "All the time," Roman said. "But I don't mind being seen. That's rarer." At Lark Laurel, Ava taught Roman how to pipe buttercream roses, watching with secret delight as a man who owned half the skyline fumbled a pastry bag like a rookie. He laughed, easy, when the frosting wilted. "You make this from muscle memory," he said, admiring the tray. "That's a kind of brilliance." "Don't make me blush in my own kitchen," Ava warned, but her cheeks were already pink. Zara appeared in the doorway, took one look at Roman's tie and Ava's eyes and mouthed holy wow behind a tray of croissants. "You trust him?" Zara asked later, when Roman stepped out to take a call. "No," Ava said honestly, "but my nervous system does. Is that insane?" "Maybe," Zara said fondly, "but your nervous system is smarter than most men I've dated." Nolan, of course, escalated. An anonymous complaint sent a health inspector to the bakery mid-morning rush. The anonymous part was laughable. Nolan had never understood stealth when spectacle was available. Ava watched the man's face change when he realized there was nothing to find. Roman watched Ava's hands shake only afterward, alone in the stockroom. "Let me help with the lease," he offered quietly, "or move you into a space I control. He can't touch what he can't reach." "I won't trade one kind of leash for another," Ava said, that old steel sliding back into place. Roman nodded, accepting the boundary. "Then we build you a stronger lock, not a bigger owner." They were good at this, negotiating space, choosing each other without grabbing. The pretending started to feel like the only honest thing. One evening on the rooftop garden of Roman's flagship hotel, the city lit like a constellation below, they almost kissed. He had just told her about the first time he saw a room service tray and thought, someone planned this. Someone cared. She had just told him about the first time she baked a cake that didn't sink and the way her mother's laugh had filled the apartment like spring. Their heads leaned in, gravity arguing its old case. Then Roman's phone buzzed, a board alert, urgent. He stepped back. The moment held, then passed. They were still pretending, but the line between script and truth thinned to a breath. The headline hit 2 days later. Calder set to redevelop River Ward. Local businesses on edge. The article named a shell company as a minor stakeholder, but Ava saw the address and the plans and felt the floor tilt. The block was hers. Lark Laurel sat within a proposed rezoning square. She walked into Roman's office without knocking, chin high, panic caged in her ribs. "Did you know?" she asked, voice gentle only by habit. Roman stood, surprise creasing his face. He'd just come off a call he didn't want. One of those board moves that smelled like Nolan's kind of chaos. "Know what?" "That your company is backing a redevelopment that erases my street." She tossed the printout onto his desk. "That your shell company?" Her mouth twisted around the words. "Makes you look like the villain in a romance novel?" Roman swore under his breath, picked up the document, and felt his gut sink. The parcel list. The LLC he'd approved for an eco-housing pilot, nothing like this. Repurposed without authorization by a board subcommittee he'd been too distracted to check. He knew the scent of sabotage when it walked through his door. "I didn't greenlight this," he said, throat tight. "This is not how we build." Ava wanted to believe him. Her body believed him. But she remembered debt notices with her forged signature and the way men smiled while moving goalposts. "I asked for one place in my life where I wasn't managed," she whispered. "And I walked straight into the man who could pave it over." Roman came around the desk, hands open. "Ava, look at me. I will fix this." "Can you?" she asked, eyes blazing now. Or will the board remind you that I'm just the girl in the photo? He flinched. The board had already started murmuring about optics and romantic entanglements, and the way leverage worked. Nolan's name had slithered into a meeting like a curse someone dared to say out loud. "Give me 48 hours," he said. "Let me cut whatever strings are strangling this. If I can't, if I don't, you'll never have to see me again." Ava swallowed. "You have 24. She left before he could say please. That night, Zara found her on the bakery floor with blueprints spread like battle plans. "I want to believe him," Ava said hoarsely. "But I'm so tired of wanting." "Believe yourself," Zara said. "Your instincts are undramatic. If they say he's good, he's good. If they say run, I'll lace up my shoes." Across town, Roman stared at a spreadsheet that looked like a trap. On a hidden line item, he found the tell, a consulting fee to a firm Nolan had used when he managed Ava's lease. Rage, bright and clean, cut through the fog. Nolan wasn't just circling, he was inside the perimeter.
The next morning, the health inspector returned with a warrant and 2 officers, faces closed, forms already printed. Someone had filed an anonymous report about vermin and expired goods. It was surgical, timed to the minute, ending with a mandatory 72-hour closure. Ava stood in a kitchen that had never failed her and let the humiliation do what pain does, burn clean lines. She didn't cry. She stacked trays. She called her vendors. She texted her mother, "I'm okay." She texted Roman nothing. Nolan waited by her back door like a comic book's idea of fate. "I told you," he purred, leaning against the brick with perfect posture. "You can't win at a game I invented." "I'm not playing," Ava said, trying to push past. He caught her wrist. The touch made her stomach revolt. "Don't embarrass yourself," he said, voice almost tender. "Come home. This phase you're in, it's cute, but you belong with someone who knows what to do with you." Roman arrived then, the universe finally obeying some decent timing. He took in Ava's rigid shoulders, Nolan's fingers on her skin, and his restraint detonated. "Let go," he said, low and lethal. Nolan released her with a shrug meant for an audience. "Ah, the savior arrives." He smiled at Roman like a mirror he could control. "You think this is about her? This is about you, your board, your pretty press. I can make it all very ugly." Roman took a step forward. Ava stepped in front of him, palms on his chest, shaking her head. "No," she said, more to herself than to either man. "I won't let you become part of his story." She turned to Nolan. "Leave." He left, because spectacle loves exits. Roman wanted to promise the world and mean it. Instead, he said, "I found his signature in the redevelopment pipeline. He's threaded through a subcommittee like fungus. I can carve him out, but the board will make it a war and they'll use us as ammunition." "I can't be the reason you lose what you built," Ava said. "I won't give him that win." "So what? We pretend we don't care? We stop seeing each other in order to look safe?" Roman's laugh was gravel. "That's just letting him choose the light switch." Ava looked at her closed bakery, at the paper taped to her door, at the woman she wanted to be. "I need to fight this my way," she said softly, "without your army. Not because I don't want you, but because I don't want to wonder for the next 20 years whose victory my life is." He understood. He hated that he understood. "Then let me know where to show up," he said, voice rough. She didn't answer. They stood in the alley with goodbye hovering, and for the first time since the lobby, their hands were empty. Ava built her case the way she built croissants: layers, patience, heat. Zara combed through old emails. A regular named Mr. Bennett, quiet, retired, allergic to injustice, taught her how to file a FOIA request like a pro. A night security guard from a neighboring restaurant slipped her a thumb drive with camera footage of a rat trap Nolan's fixer had planted behind her dumpster at 2 a.m. "Proof," Zara whispered, triumph and fury twin flames in her eyes. "You're going to roast him." Roman went to war in his lane. He called in favors from accountants who owed him honesty, from attorneys who liked puzzles, from a journalist who had once waited tables at one of his hotels. Sophie coached him through the part where he had to admit he needed help. "You're not protecting her if you're trying to win alone," she said, twisting her lemon tree to catch more light. "You're just repeating the story where men isolate and then call it love." He exhaled. "I hate when you're right." "Then become someone who loves it," Sophie shot back, smiling. By Friday, Ava had a file thick as a Bible and a plan that made her palms sweat. She would present it at the River Ward Town Hall, where the redevelopment vote would be discussed publicly. Roman had a different stage, the board's quarterly closed door until it wasn't, where he intended to detonate Nolan's influence with surgical precision. They found each other the night before, not by plan but by the gravity that had started it all. Outside the bakery, under the papered windows, they stood with all the unsaid words humming like neon. "I missed you," Ava confessed, because truth at the edge of a cliff deserves daylight. "I missed us," Roman returned. "I don't know what the future looks like, but I know I want to be in your kitchen arguing about frosting." Ava laughed, eyes wet. "And I want to be at your terrible board meetings making faces from the back row." "Deal," he said, and for once the word was simple. They didn't kiss. They held hands, that first language, and set their alarms.
Town hall overflowed. Cameras, clipboards, neighbors who remembered when corners had names. The committee chair began with bland kindness. A developer representative talked about opportunity corridors and activating underutilized parcels. Ava waited, palms pressed flat on her file to stop the tremor. When she stepped to the microphone, the room quieted in that way that means hearts are waiting. "My name is Ava Reyes," she said, voice clear. "I own Lark Laurel. I love my street. And I have proof that what looks like a noble plan is being pushed by people willing to lie, forge, and plant evidence to get their way." She laid it out like a recipe anyone could follow. Dates, emails, footage, the health inspector's recorded apology. He hadn't known he was being used until he saw the trap on camera. Gasps dotted the room. The developer rep tried to object. The chair, an old woman with the tired patience of someone who'd seen every hustle, held up a hand. "Let her finish." Ava closed with the only thing that ever moved mountains, her whole self. "I am not against change," she said. "I'm against erasure. We deserve development that honors what's living here. Not schemes, not men who think a neighborhood is a chessboard and people are pieces you slide until you win." Applause began like rain, then swelled to weather. A reporter who had come for a smaller story realized he'd found the bigger one. Across the river, Roman walked into his boardroom with Sophie at his flank, like a general's right hand. He did not wait for the agenda. He put the consulting fee on the screen, traced the money to Nolan's fixer, traced the influence to the subcommittee, traced the risk to a vote they would regret when the story broke, because it would, any minute. He didn't threaten, he forecast. "You hired me to build with integrity," he said evenly. "If I can't guarantee that, step aside and let someone else raise their hand, and I'll take my name off the door by end of day. But if I stay, we cut this rot out now." Someone tried to bring up personal entanglements. Sophie laughed out loud, a sound like breaking glass in freedom. "Say her name with respect," she said, "or don't say it at all." Phones began to buzz around the table as the town hall thread went live. Faces changed altitude. The vote to reverse the redevelopment authorization passed with a swiftness that would later be spun as prudence. Roman felt no triumph, only relief so bright it made him dizzy. He texted Ava a single word: "Done." Back at town hall, Nolan strode in 10 minutes too late to stop anything. He tried to commandeer the mic with the indignation of someone allergic to accountability. The guard who'd given Ava the footage stepped forward, hat off, and said in a voice that carried, "Sir, I believe you forgot this," and plugged in the thumb drive. The room watched Nolan's fixer on a grainy screen setting a trap by flashlight. Ava didn't gloat. She stood very still. Nolan's eyes found hers, and for once there was nothing to hook into. The chair banged her gavel. "We'll be referring this to the DA," she said briskly. "Next item." Outside, cameras swarmed. Roman emerged from a car like he'd been running for a decade and had finally reached the right street. He didn't say anything clever. He just went to Ava and held out his hand. She took it. Something like quiet bloomed in the center of the noise.
6 months later, the River Ward looked different without losing its face. The redevelopment became an incubator for small businesses with leases a neighborhood could afford. Funded by a public-private cocktail, Roman's team drafted from scratch with community input and the kind of clauses that keep predators bored. Lark Laurel reopened with a line around the block and a menu that named a tart after the woman on the zoning board, who never missed a meeting. The DA charged Nolan's fixer. Nolan pivoted to denial, as men like him do. The internet didn't buy tickets for his comeback tour. The lease games, the forged emails, the planted trap, it all formed a pattern his lawyer could not paint over. Ava learned how to sleep without listening for footsteps. Roman stepped back from 3 deals that didn't smell right. He hired slower. He visited Sophie's lemon tree more. He learned to like being wrong faster. On a Tuesday that felt like a gift, he sat at the corner table in Ava's bakery with a laptop and a coffee, and watched her do the thing that made the world better without asking permission. When she looked up, he smiled like a secret, and she shook her head like a woman astonished to have a soft place to land. "Did you know," she said later, flower on her cheek, "that before the lobby, there was a Tuesday like this? You came in at 6:45 a.m., ordered a black coffee and 2 honey buns tipped like a reckless man, and left a note on the receipt. You make the morning kinder." I kept it. Roman blinked. "I remember the honey buns. I remember the kindness," she said. "I think maybe I was halfway in love then. I just hadn't learned the name." They still fought sometimes. He still wanted to fix it all with one phone call. She still needed to know she could win with her own 2 hands. They practiced the choreography of together the way a dancer learns new music, listening more than they moved, then moving like it was always meant to be. On a spring evening that smelled like lemon blossoms and new paint, Roman took her back to the hotel where it had started. The pianist was there, older by the exact number of days it takes to change your life. Roman stood under the chandelier and held out his hand. "Pretend you're with me?" he asked, grin tilting. Ava stepped in, fingers threading through his, heat home. "I don't pretend anymore," she said. "I choose." "Then choose me," he said simply. "Not because you need me, because you want to." "I want you," she said, and the truth settled like a blessing. He slid a ring onto her finger, oval diamond, simple band, a light that didn't need help to shine, and in the applause of strangers who had become witnesses, they kissed the kiss they'd been almost having since the rooftop. Later, on the bakery door, Ava taped the first receipt note beside a new one in Roman's blocky print. First sight, your courage. Forever sight, your joy. They would not be perfect. They would be honest. And in the city they kept, hands held like a promise, they learned that safety and love are not the same thing. But together, they are a very good home. What do you think is the braver act? Asking for help in the lobby or learning to fight on your own terms later? Tell me in the comments which moment hit you harder and why. And if you were writing their next chapter, what would you make them face together?